Good morning, everyone, and you are welcome to our continuing lecture on investment appraisal. And our focus today will be on doing advanced and delayed annuities and perpetuities. All right, so we've already looked at annuity as an investment package. The concept annuity simply means there is series of equal cash flows. All right, so there's equal cash flow. So when we look at the investment annuity, the one that we dealt with ordinary due and annuity in advanced annuities, you realize that it was an investment on its own. But our focus now today is about doing those annuities, and our focus in doing these annuities today is using it as a discount factor. All right, so basically that is that. So annuity simply means series of equal cash flows. All right, so when the cash flows are constant over a number of years, and that is what you see here. All right, so for example, if we have a payment of 1,000 to be made every year for 3 years, so it means every year you pay 1,000. How do we then do the present value of that? So remember, we learned an annuity where the interest rate was compounding. In this system, we are learning an annuity where the interest rate is not compounding. All right, so a simple annuity. All right, so if you want to find the present value of such simple annuities, we could use two different means. Means one is when we know our 3 years, we know that every year there is a payment of what? 1,000. Okay, then what we do is that we PV just like we have done discounting cash flows. All right, so we were given the rate of 10%. Then the rate 10%, of course, you can read this thing from your table. All right, and I think you know how to do that. So 10%, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years will be what? So let's go to our table. So first of all, we need to know that we are using our discounting factor PV, but this one is the annuity table. So let's go to, so we have, this is our present value table. How do you know it's your present value table? You always use the formula to know, all right? Because the formula for present value is given like this. So 1 plus R raised to the power T, which of course you know that this can be rewritten as 1 plus R raised to the power minus T or N, depending on whatever you want to put there. So that is what you see here. And so that should tell you that that is your normal PV table. So 10% is here. Year 1, you see it. That is year 1 is 0.909. Year 2 is 0.826. Year 3 is 0.751. So that is what you will be seeing. Now, hold on. You can, since the cash flows were 1,000 every year, you can as well do the annuity. The annuity is just the combination of all these discount factors. So if I have 909 plus 0.826 plus 0.751, that generally gives me 2.486. But you see, if I can get this thing, these three, and add on my calculator, then it's useless, because I could just use it and multiply my thousands. But why then, if I go there to my annuity table, this 10% for 3 years, you see, 2.487, just 0.001 difference. That is because of approximations. All right, so basically that is that. So you can use your table to read it. You can as well calculate it on your own. But if I want to get this one straight, I can also use a formula, 1 minus this formula over R. So that is that. 1 minus this same formula. So it will be 1 minus 1 plus 1 over 1 plus R raised to the power N all over R. That's it. So if I now put 1 here and do 1 over 1.1, that's 10%, and it is 3 years, all over 0.1. If you do this, you still end up with 2.487. All right, so basically that is that. So whichever way you do it, you can find your formula. All right, so that is it, okay? So we go back to dealing with this. And once you do it, you see, you multiply it by your cash flow. Our cash flow is 1,000. It's 1,000. When you multiply them, you get this figure. So that is how you go around doing your annuity. All right, so that is it. So you could see that we read it from our table. We had this and we fix it into our formula. But that is not a problem because we have already done all these things like this. All right, so that is that. So that is dealing with the annuity. Now we go to perpetuity. Perpetuity. What is a perpetuity? You see, when the cash flows occur forever, so 1,000 forever. If it is going to be forever, how do we do it? So we need one, so it will be the cash flow multiplied by 1 over R. That's all. R is the interest rate or the discount rate. So that is that. It's a simple formula. But what if it is going to grow in future forever? So with growth, it will be cash flow multiplying 1 over R minus G. So that is how you do perpetuity with growth. All right, so that is that. So you just need the cash flow. And you could see that any number multiplied by 1 is the number itself. So some people write it cash flow over R. But I prefer you do it this way. All right. So that is all. So let's say we have these examples. So there is a 3,000 to be received in 1 year time and forever. 1 year time and forever. 3,000 Ghana cedis. So 3,000 multiplied by, what is the discount rate for us? 0.1. So you do this and that is it. You have 30,000. But what if it is going to grow by 2% per annum forever? So that one will mean that I will have to do 3,000 multiplied by 0.1 minus 2% is 0.02. All right. And when you do that, your answer now changes slightly to 37,500. So that is how you do perpetuity. You see, the annuity ends at a place, maybe 4 years, 5 years. So you went to your table to read at the column, perpetuity is forever. All right. So let's come to the main deal, learning how to do advanced and delayed annuities and perpetuities. Advanced and delayed annuities and perpetuity. So first of all, let's look at how the advance look like. So what is advanced annuities? Now, the word advance means that you have done the payment or the cash flow has happened before. All right. So it's like going to rent a room or a house, and the landlord or the landlady tells you that you have to pay advance. You see, what you see in there is that you pay the money before you live in the house. So that is what it means. So in present values, we learn that the investment starts in year 0 and the accounting period flows like this. So you do your investment as assumed to be the end of this period. So you are doing the investment end of this period. This year 0 is also called today. It means the investment is done today. So it means you don't need to present value it because you are already in what? The present, okay? So you are making the investment decision today. It is also called real. It is also called cash terms because today is cash. It is also called current. It is also called immediate. So all these words, when you see it in a question, it means the cash flows are commencing from year zero. Now, we are saying that advance means you are standing at year zero. In fact, you are making, when you do your budget in your office, you are standing at a present today to do the budget. So you assume that you'll be getting revenues for some years, but you want to know the profitability of those years' budget that you are doing today. So we PV every present valuing that we are doing, we are PVing it back to year zero. So year zero. All these things, you are PVing it to your current year. And that is why when you take your formula, you do 1 over 1 plus r raised to the power, let's say, n. Your n is therefore the years, the number of years. So if it is year one, you put it there, year one. What are you doing? You are bringing the figure, wherever it is, to this period. So that is what you are doing, all right? And so if you go to rent a house, or let's say you go to rent a room, and you went there today, that today is your year zero. Now, let's say you go there, you are renting for, let's say, 5 years. And in each of the years, you are paying 600, 600, 600, 600, 600. That is what you've been told. The value of those future monies today, and the word today means here. The value of those future money today is, if you want that, then you'll be PVing it. All right, you'll be PVing it. And this is where you pick up your annuity, you go and read your annuity. So in a simple annuity like this, we will pick one of the 600 because the cash flow is the same every year. Then we go and read, if let's say it's 10%, you go and read 10% for how many years? 5 years. So let's go quickly and go and read 10% for 5 years and come back. So annuity, 10% for 5 years, that gives us 3.791. So this is it. Now, if I now multiply my 600 by 3.791, what I get is 2274.60. So this is it. All right. Now, assuming that we have this same scenario, but assuming that the landlord tells us that, okay, you should pay the money in advance. So it means that I have to pay the money before I live in the house in the year. That is what it means. So let's say I have, let me reduce this thing to 4 years now, just for illustration's sake, because that is what you have in your book. So year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4. So because we did 10%, all right, and I think we have 2.487, you remember? So you'll be using that to, yeah. So where are you? 2.487. So basically that is that. So that is 10% for annuity for 4 years. Now let's say you are renting the room or the house. Now you are told that you have to pay the money in advance. So it means that today when you go to the landlord, you have to pay the money today. So you see, you are paying every year's amount in advance, not the entire money in advance like the way we do it in Ghana. No. So you are going to pay every year's rent in advance. So it means that if I go to the landlord today, I have to pay a money today for my next year. And in next year, I have to pay the money in next year for the next 2 years. So instead of the 600 happening in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, because in investment appraisal, we learn that these figures that you are seeing is assumed to be at the end of each year. All right. So it is assumed to be at the end of each year. That's the assumption under NPV analysis. So whenever you get a question that tells you that the cash flow begins at the beginning of this year, of the year, then it means that the cash flow starts here. Take note of that. Take note of that, because in investment appraisal, we said that the CAPEX starts at the end of year 0 and the inflow starts at the end of each of other accounting years. Take note of that. It's very, very important. So when you get a question that tells you that the cash flow happened at the beginning of each year, then it means the cash flow is starting at year 0. And so it means that if I'm to pay, if I take this one, for example, and we are told that the cash flow is starting at the beginning of each year, or at advance, or starting today. So beginning of each year. So you can add it to the list here at the beginning. All right, you can add it to the list there. Anyway, we will have a questions and we'll be dealing with these things. So now, so if I want to, the question tells you that the cash flows are happening at the beginning. Don't forget, beginning means advance. We did time value of money, if you remember. Beginning means advance, and at the end means arrears. When you are doing your investment appraisal, the assumption is that the cash flow always happen at the end, because it's a profitability analysis you're doing. You can only get the real profit at the end of the year. That is basically what it is. So if you get a question that tells you that the thing starts at the beginning of each year, then it is telling you it's an advance. And if it is an advance, then what is going to happen is that it is starting at year 0. Take note of this very important statement. All right. So we come here, let's say in this question, we are told that your rent 600 is going to happen. You are paying rent for 4 years, but it is going to happen at the beginning of each year, which means in advance, and every advance means starting from year 0. Then what are you going to do? It means 600 for 4 years will start here and end here. Why not here? No, because it is in advance for 4 years. That's how it's going to be. All right. Now, the question is about we PVing this using our 10%. You see, the truth is that we don't PV a figure that is in today, because you're already in the present. The word is present value. So you can't present value something when you are already in present value. All right. So this figure means we are at present value. What do you know about every figure that is at year 0? The present value of that, the discount factor is what? 1. Good. 1. So it means that we will represent, when we are reading in advance, we will represent the year 0 with what? 1. Then we now go to our table and read for this. So when we go to our table, what is 600 cedis all about is 10% for 3 years. Yes, quick, we go. 10% for 3 years. 10% annuity factor, 3 years. So 10% annuity factor for 3 years, guess is what we did over there. So it means that perhaps what we worked here, we took, so 3 years. So you can read also from your table, 10% for 3 years. You see it, 2.4 what? 87, 2.487. Meaning that our total discount factor for PVing our 600 will be what? 3.487. And so if I now multiply it by my 600, what do I have? 3.487 by 600. That gives me 2092.20. So that is how we go about doing an advance annuity. All right. So that is that. So that is such thing you see in here. All right. So basically that is that. So you see it right in. So this one had 5 years. So 5 years. Of course, when it is 5 years, it means that we can pick this discount factor that we used. We did 5 years before. So we did 4 years before. All right, I don't have it here. Yeah, so this is it. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this is what you are going to do if it is. So let's go back. We have year 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 500, a 5-year annuity starting today, which means that starting today, don't forget those words. So another word is T0, all right? So it means our 600 will be 600, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that is how it is. Here will be represented by 1.00. We read our 4 years. 4 years annuity factor. We've read it before. So let me just go and pick the figure that we had. This one is for 5 years, right? Yeah, this one was for 4. Okay, so let's go for 4 years. Annuity 10%, 4 years. That is 3.170, making the total here to be what? 4.170. So if I multiply it by 600, what am I having? So 4.170 by 600, and I have 2502. So that is how it goes. So that is how you do advance annuity. So that is the simple. Now, how do we do advanced perpetuity? So the same scenario. So you have year 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Our discount rate is 10% as usual. All right, now we focus on perpetuity. Again, you need to understand that if the perpetuity is in advance, then it is starting from here. And any number here is PV'd at what? Year 0, 1.000. All right, 3 decimal places as usual. So if you now have a question that says that the thing is going to be in perpetuity for a same amount, let's say 600, infinity, 600 to infinity, starting at year 0 or in advance or at the beginning of the year, then it means that our first one will be represented by 1. Then we add 1 plus r, all right? So to be 1.00, and here we have 1 over, so 1 over r was 0.1, right? So that is 10%. 10% means 0.1. So if I do 1 divided by 0.1, I get 10. So 10 plus 1 will give me 11. Then I multiply it by my 600 cash flow, and that, I guess, will be 6600. All right, so basically that is that. All right, or 6,000, right? No, that is 6600 because it is 11. And any number plus, when you are multiplying any number with 11, you take these first 2 digits here, I guess, and you put them together, it gets 6, and you fix it inside. So that is multiplying 11 by 2 figures, and 0 is also 0, all right? So if you get any number times 11, let me teach you this. So let's say 11 times 53, it will be 583 without me calculating it on anything, because I need to add these 2 figures and put it in their middle, all right? So if you ask me about 11 by 530, 0 is just a 0 number. So I can say it is 5830. That's it. You can prove it on your calculator, and that will be all. That's it. All right. can learn how to do such. So this one is 6600. All right, these are things we used to learn in our very basic school when we were taught mental, where you have to find a way to figure it out. All right, so that is that. Okay, so you've learned how to do advanced annuity and advanced perpetuity. Of course, if the perpetuity were to be with growth, then minus G. Don't forget that. All right, so the same thing. So knowing that, we are told that a perpetuity of 2000 is due to commence immediately. So it is in perpetuity, but it is commencing immediately, which means year zero. So that means that our first 2000 will be in year zero, then the remaining to infinity. So what is the discount rate? 9%. So what do? It will be 1 over R, right, which is 0.09. That's 9%. This one will be represented by 1. So if I now do 1 over 0.09, that gives me 11.11 plus 1. That gives me 12.11111. I multiply it by my 2000, and that gives me 24,222.22. So basically, that is what you go in and do. So such as this. All right. So that is how you need to do. So I have illustrations for you. You have to learn with this. Okay. So let's say I'm picking in to do something. So we have a 15-year annuity starting at once. At once also means advance. All right. So anything that suggests now, anything that suggests today, that is what it means. So if you have 15-year annuity starting from now or at once, interest rate is 6%. You can't write 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 15. There's no need. You do know that since it's starting today, it will shift from 15 and become 14 because it's starting from year 0. And your year 0 will be represented by 1. And therefore, what you need to go in and do is to read your interest percentage for how many years now? 14. That's very good because the 15 one is at year 0. So basically, that is that. So it's like you are removing the last end date to year 0 to PV it at 1. Then you do the annuity factor for the remaining. What do I mean? So if you have year up to year, you are doing it for 22 years, then it means that you will pick the 22nd year to come to year 0 and PV it at 1. Then in between 1 to 21, you do an annuity factor for it. It's as simple as that. So this one, my year 0 will be represented by 1. Then I'll go and read 6% for 14 years. So let's go straight. 6%, do we have 6%? It's 6% for 14 years. That is 9.295. So that makes it 10.295. I'm reading it from here. Then I'll multiply it by, the figure was 300, right? So I have 300 multiplying 10.295. And that gives me 388.5. So that is how it goes. Let's go to the second one. The second one suggests that I am having 7 years annuity immediately starting at year 11. I guess you should be able to do that. So try it yourself. And if you get it right, this will be your answer. All right. So that is that. So try it at your end. Okay. Then we have a perpetuity for 3,000 commencing also immediately. How do you do that? Don't forget, it's perpetuity. So the first one will be represented by 1. The others will be represented by 1 over R. Don't forget that. So if this one is at 1.00, when you do plus, what is the rate? 0.22. What will you get? So So you have 4.545 plus the 1. That gives you 5.545. All right. 5.545. If you multiply it by the 33,000, that is 183,000. All right. So that is the perpetuity. So you can do same, starting at one's interest rate. If the perpetuity were to be with growth, don't forget to take away the growth from the denominator. So you can go ahead and you can do that. You see, this one had a slight different figure. Why? It's because of approximations. All right. So that is that. Okay. So can go ahead and try with all the examples. All right. So don't worry if your process is right. The difference may just be about approximations. All right. So that is that. Now, the next thing that we need to do is to go in there and do the delayed aspect. So a delayed aspect. Delayed annuities and perpetuities. All right. So how do you do delayed annuities and perpetuities? How does the concept of delay happens? We've been using 5 years, right? Okay. So delayed means that instead of paying it in that year, you pay it the next year. That's basically the meaning of delayed, and it is also called arrears. All right. You see, take for example, taxes. You know, taxes are paid 1 year in arrears. So CIT, income taxes, company income taxes, or personal income tax. You see, if you want to pay your tax for your first year, you need to finish the entire first year, which is 31st December. You can't know your profit at 31st December and pay your tax at 31st December. No. That is why the law gives you 4 months ensuing the basis period. So if December taxes, if your accounting year starts from January to December, you pay your tax the following year's April, and that is called arrears. All right. It is also called delayed. All right. So basically, that is that. Okay. So at the end of the year means arrears. All right. Basically, that is that. But into the next year means you have delayed. All right. So that is that. So now we are supposed to, the cash flow is supposed to be 600, 600, 600, 600, 600. 600 for 5 years. That has delayed means that it didn't start at year 1. It started at somewhere here. So if it is delayed into the second year, that is the meaning. So it delays 1 year means that 5 years annuity, which means we need to create another 1 for 6 years. That is it. Or you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A 5-year delayed cash flow may be delayed for 2 years. So 5-year delayed starting from year 2, or year 2 is what I've done here. Let's say delayed and the payment started coming, or the cash flow started coming in the 3rd year. It means 5 years will be 0, 600, 600. I have to add 600 and another one, 600 to get my 5 years. How do you present value these things? In this first scenario, we've already said that figures must be PV to year 0. So when you had this, you remember, you saw that you were PVing this one to year 0, just the year immediately behind. Immediately behind. And so since you are PVing this one to this one, you are coming behind 1, 2. And that is why your 1 plus R is always raised to the power 2 years. Because you came 1, 2. So this one, we use 3 years because you come 1, 2, and 3. The same thing, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that is how it is. So you are coming back to the year immediately behind you. All right. So, I mean, from year 1. That's how it works. So when this one gives to this one gives to this one gives to this, and this one gives to this. So that is how we put those figures at the exponential, the years. Now come to this one. It is delayed. That means that the PV that we are going to do will just be here. Every PV that you do. So 1, 2, it will come here. 1, 2, 3. So that is what you do. So in a delayed annuities, when you PV the delay with the annuity factor, the answer that you will be getting will be positioned at year 1. This one, if you do the annuity, the answer that you get, its position is at year 2. So if it was delayed starting from the 4th year, the answer that you get, its position is what? Year 3. But we want the figures at year 0. And so what do? You have to come back 1 year. And this one, you will use the discount factor. You saw that this one is the annuity factor. So you will use the annuity factor for this. The answer you get here is at year 2. Therefore, you PV it backward 2 years. So that is how it is. So that is the first approach. Somebody too can decide to do it this way. He can decide to include this year and do the annuity for 6 years. He will do the annuity for 6 years. But the thing was for 5 years. That means you need to deduct 1 year annuity factor. So you did for 6 years, then you deduct 1 year, all right, from it. All right. So in this case, you do for how many years? 7 years. Then you come and deduct 2 years from it. Whichever way you want to go. Asking me for my preferred choice. Annuity this. Let your answer be here. PV it here. 1 year discount. Annuity this. Let your answer be here. Multiply it by 2 years discount factor. That's all.